At the beginning of the 2010s, the banking world believes itself strong behind its walls of glass and numbers. The towers of financial institutions rise into the skies of Europe, Asia, North America. The vaults are armored, the airlocks sealed, the cameras keep watch. But another door opens, invisible. It does not creak. It does not slam. It has neither hinge nor handle. It opens in the circuits, in the fibers, in the cold light of screens. Online banking becomes widespread. The SWIFT network pulses day and night, like a global heart pushing billions across continents. Internal transaction processing systems are deployed in every institution. Servers lined up like legions of metal, databases as deep as gold mines, screens loaded with numbers racing at full speed. Cybersecurity reports are published year after year. Kaspersky Lab, Group IB, FireEye, and others all write the same warning. Attacks are multiplying. Financial institutions have now become battlefields. Sums of money are already disappearing, swallowed up by online fraud, data theft, malicious campaigns. The FBI's IC3, Europol, publish figures. Losses increase. The columns of amounts stretch like shadows at dusk. Yet, at this time, no one sees a single name, a single group, rise up that dares to target the very heart of the banking fortress. Its internal systems, its nerves, its vital organs. The known assaults hit the surface. Customers, cards, passwords. The facades are monitored. Teller windows are reinforced. But deep in the networks, the ground begins to tremble. An unprecedented operation is taking shape, slowly, methodically, in the shadows. In 2013, weak signals first appear in the East. In Russia, Ukraine, in the countries of the Commonwealth of Independent States, the first technical scars are etched into the system logs. Banks notice strange anomalies. Local incident response teams, national certs, private companies lean over screens saturated with logs. Lines of text scroll by. Something is wrong. Here, an internal workstation receives a targeted email, perfectly credible, intended for a specific employee. There, an attachment is opened, a Word document, an Excel file, a PowerPoint presentation. Nothing spectacular in appearance. A simple click, like so many others in the daily crash of emails. But behind this click, a breach opens. A Microsoft Office vulnerability, a Windows flaw, a hidden door in the code. And suddenly, an implant sinks into the machine like a silent poison. Analysts examine the code. They dissect, they compare, they trace links back. Among these strains, a troubling lineage emerges. They recognize the shadow of an old tool, Carbanak, already known from other criminal campaigns. But here, the creature is different, modified, sharpened for banks. Other fragments evoke a campaign dubbed Anunak, which targets payment companies, point-of-sale terminals. Little by little, the whole comes together, like a face emerging from the darkness. One name imposes itself, Carbanak, a fusion of Carbanak and Anunak, symbol of this criminal mutation turned entirely toward financial institutions. The name will come later, in the laboratories of Kaspersky Lab, but already, in 2013, the first traces of this future giant are spreading on Russian, Ukrainian, then other machines. The future Carbanak group tests its weapons, gauges defenses, explores networks. It still operates in silence. No one speaks its name, yet it is there. Behind this code, behind these packets flying through the cables, there is a human group. Invisible, but real. Technical reports and judicial investigations, later on, sketch its collective face. A cluster of cybercriminals, organized, structured. They operate from former Soviet lands, between anonymous apartments and cafes with pale neon lights, between laptops and burner phones. No banner, no emblem, but discipline, method, ambition. At the heart of the group, developers forge malware like blacksmiths of the shadows. First Anunak, then Carbanak, later Cobalt and other descendants. Each family of code is a weapon, each module a blade. Around them, infrastructure operators set up command and control servers. They set up machines in distant countries, rent hosting under false identities, or take over compromised servers. They weave a global web of footholds. Lower in the hierarchy, the money mules wait for their hour. These are men and women who rent out their identity, their bank accounts, Sometimes their mere presence in front of an ATM. They see only a tiny part of the plan, but without them, money has no hands to come out of the walls. Finally, above them, coordinators orchestrate the whole scheme. They choose the targets, decide on the amounts, synchronize the attacks. They remain faceless for a long time, protected by pseudonyms, by distances, by borders. Facing them, the victims are still unaware of one another. They are numerous, scattered. Commercial banks and financial institutions in Russia, the United States, Germany, China, Ukraine, Canada, France, Spain, the United Kingdom, Poland, Norway, Switzerland, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and other countries as well. According to the figures that will surface later, at least 30 nations already bear, at that time, the invisible mark of the same criminal hand. Yet, in public reports, the names of the banks most often remain hidden. Confidentiality wraps them like a veil. Only the outlines can be seen. An institution in Spain loses several million, another in Asia suffers massive withdrawals, yet another in Europe discovers abnormal transfers. Each establishment knows its own wound, often deep, sometimes amounting to tens of millions of dollars. But almost none of them know that this wound belongs to a worldwide gash that is beginning to open. Behind the scenes, some actors are starting to piece together the clues. In Moscow, Kaspersky Labs' great team examines the malware samples sent in by worried banks and overwhelmed certs. The analysts line up the samples, trace the flows, work their way back through the infrastructure. Interpol and Europol are taking an interest in these signals. They watch, cautiously. National investigative services keep watch, often in silence. In Spain, a specialized unit of the Audiencia Nacional is already following certain threads that, years later, will lead to a man arrested in Alicante. But for the moment, none of this is yet clear. We are in the phase where the storm is forming in the distance, behind the horizon line. One hears only a dull rumble. It blends into the noise of the digital world. The banks, meanwhile, keep running. Every day, millions of transactions go out and come back. The servers spin. The screens light up. The numbers dance. In the invisible underground of the internet, the criminals are finishing the setup of their infrastructure. They choose countries spread across several continents. There, they install C2 servers, those remote command centers. Sometimes they compromise existing hosting platforms and graft their own clandestine services onto them. Sometimes they rent directly, but under fake identities, with forged documents, fake companies. Each server becomes a watchtower. Each IP address, a command post. They register domain names that seem innocuous, almost mundane. Some imitate legitimate services, internal corporate tools, update portals. Others bear technical, credible-sounding names that do not arouse the suspicion of overworked administrators. Behind these digital facades, orders are about to circulate. The viruses will obey. The screens will open. To prevent any prying eyes, the criminals wrap their communications in encryption. The compromised machines talk to the C2 servers in a secret language. The configurations are encrypted. Proprietary protocols travel on top of HTTP or HTTPS, camouflaged within the ordinary web traffic. To an inattentive observer, everything looks like a routine exchange. In reality, precise instructions are in transit. Download this module, exfiltrate that file, record this video sequence. The fate of the bank often hinges on a human reflex. The employee opens the file. An animation starts. A message asks them to allow the content. They click again. At that very moment, an exploit is triggered in the shadow of the document. A known vulnerability, described in a public register, is used like an invisible crowbar. The system gives way, silently, without any visible alert. The main malware, first Anunak, then Carbanak, then installs itself on the machine. It does not content itself with appearing. It clings on. Deep within the Windows system, it writes its name into certain registry keys. It creates discrete services. It schedules tasks that relaunch after every reboot. Even if the user turns off their computer, even if a technician turns it back on and vaguely looks at the running processes, the implant remains there, clinging like a parasite to the walls of the system. From this moment on, the compromised machine becomes an anchor point. Carbanak's capabilities are vast. It acts as a full rat, a remote access Trojan. From their distant hideouts, The criminals can execute commands as if they were sitting at the keyboard. They download and exfiltrate files. They install, when needed, other malicious modules that add specialized functions. Above all, they observe. Carbanak records the screen as video, regularly capturing still images. The attackers watch these sequences as one watches a documentary film about the internal life of a bank. They see which software is open, how employees navigate payment applications, how they validate a transaction, how they connect to Swift servers, how they access the systems that manage ATMs. The malware also listens to keystrokes. Every key press is recorded, every password, every ID. The attackers thus retrieve the keys that open the digital vaults. Then, they move forward. Lateral movement begins. They use legitimate tools, such as PSExec, or remote administration software already present in the company. They rummage through network shares, explore servers, escalate privileges. Their goal is not to make noise. They do not encrypt data, do not destroy systems. They want to understand and take control. They identify the most sensitive servers, those that process transactions, those that orchestrate international transfers, those that control ATMs, those that talk to the Swift network. Each identified server is a strategic position conquered in the fortress. Meanwhile, on the surface, between 2013 and 2014, the banks see only the symptoms. Abnormal withdrawals occur at ATMs in several countries. Sometimes, an ATM starts spewing out banknotes without any card being inserted. Surveillance cameras show an individual who approaches at the exact time, holds out their hands, collects the bundles, then walks away calmly. Elsewhere, strange international transfers appear in the systems. Large amounts, unknown beneficiaries, accounts opened in Hong Kong, in China, in Europe, in jurisdictions that few people in the bank know about. Balance modifications occur, apparently without cause. An account suddenly sees its amount skyrocket. A difference is transferred to another bank, to an account held by a mule. Then the initial balance is restored. On internal statements, nothing seems abnormal at first glance. The books are balanced. The discrepancies hide in the shadow of manipulation. Internal financial departments look for errors. Maybe a software failure. Maybe a classic internal fraud. The incidents resemble cases already seen, old scams modernized. When an alert arises, people talk about bank reconciliations to be reviewed, about additional controls. But in many cases, no one immediately connects these anomalies to a deep, methodical intrusion carried out by a single group acting simultaneously on several continents. Yet the hemorrhage is real. By adding up the studied cases, by cross-checking testimonies, Kaspersky Lab would later estimate that total losses were between 300 million and 1 billion US dollars. Gigantic sums, capable of shaking entire balance sheets. But at that moment in the story, no definitive figure emerges. No international judicial authority proclaims a final amount. The truth is scattered among nations, courts, meeting rooms where people speak in low voices, where compensation and confidentiality documents are signed. During this period, the banking world lives in an illusion of control. It sees isolated incidents, occasional fraud, errors to be corrected. It still ignores that behind each case, behind each capricious ATM, behind each suspicious transfer, it is the same hand at work. This hand is patient. It does not seek glory. It seeks discretion and repetition. It strikes, then disappears, then strikes elsewhere. Thus, between 2013 and 2014, one of the most audacious criminal operations in modern financial history is put in place. The actors have taken their positions. The malware is ready. The C2 servers respond. The mules await their orders. The banks, for their part, move toward the edge of the abyss without seeing it. But already, in certain laboratories, in certain discrete Interpol and Europol units, in the offices of national investigators, eyes are sharpening. The first links are beginning to appear. Technical signatures overlap. IP addresses appear in several cases. Identical code segments show up in incidents separated by thousands of kilometers. And when this name finally comes to light, it is no longer just the story of a theft. It is the story of a metamorphosis. That of a cybercrime that stops knocking at the doors to settle inside the palace itself, in the very seat of the banker.